Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, October 19th. That makes it debate day, apparently, once again. They keep doing these things. I'm not really sure why. Will they trick me into watching tonight? Well, probably. Once again, you have to watch and see what kind of train wreck we're really going to get out of this debate. They're not like other debates, I guess. So we'll see. And once again, Donald Trump up to the same trick. I'm not really sure why he has convinced himself, Donald Trump, that there is an angle of the debate that's critical that includes trying to decide who to invite to sit in the front row to rattle Hillary Clinton. And I mean, they have not got that game going on just yet, but they continue to try to do this. I imagine if Donald Trump spent half the time preparing for the debate that he spends trying to think of somebody that he can invite that will undo Hillary Clinton's preparation for the debate, or preparation for life, for that matter, since that's what we're really talking about, then he might actually do well. What he should do is be looking to invite a debate coach that can actually help him, as opposed to, I don't know, I'm not sure why he thinks anybody would rattle Hillary Clinton. I guess it's possible that there was maybe some validity to the idea that maybe a lineup of people who had accused Bill Clinton of something might possibly, if not, it certainly would, nothing unnerves Hillary Clinton at this point, but maybe make her angry. But they blew that one. That was really amazing. I'm still reeling at the fact that they're gonna, the guys who have the secret plan to defeat ISIS by sneaking ninjas into Syria and taking out the enemy secretly and silently couldn't get 4 people into priority seating at a debate and were thwarted by, I don't know how old Frank Fahrenkopf is, but, as establishment as it gets, I don't know how they got cucked by Frank Fahrenkopf. Anyway, today's plan apparently is to invite a Benghazi mom, which is to say the parent of someone killed in Benghazi, who they've had before at the conventions, I guess, so it's no surprise. There's no news interest in that, really. And, of course, there'll be no confrontation. And the other mystery part here is President Obama's half-brother. Is that the correct relationship? I guess President Obama, it's been known for quite some time. He's got a half-brother who was raised, I guess, by his dad in Africa post-divorce from mom. And I don't know. Is that interesting? I mean, it's alleged that he is a Hamas supporter, which is entirely possible, of course, but I guess the part I'm missing is, how is that an embarrassment to Hillary Clinton? The guy supports Hamas, and so is presumably also was raised Muslim and is half brothers to the guy who preceded her in office and who she presumably supported for office post-primary, but I don't see the connection. I guess that's just Breitbart world. In Breitbart world, it's obvious that this is a huge embarrassment to all Democrats, and Hillary Clinton included. To the rest of the world, no one is really sure why that's supposed to matter. But then again, these guys believe in clockwork elves and their plot to destroy America in particular, not just the entire planet or this dimension or anything like that. So they're targeting America, as we learned yesterday. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't imagine that any of it is going to work today, but we'll tune in nonetheless. I try to avoid these things, but I guess I'm just curious to see what they're going to try and do and fail at so that we can have something to talk about for the show. Anyway, we'll interview people who are going to watch the debate tonight, in case you were interested in talking to some of those people. Greg Dworkin will be with us. He's almost surely going to be watching the debate. And Joan McCarter will be with us because it's Wednesday, and not incidentally, because she'll also be watching the debate. She'll probably be helping run the open thread live blogging of the debate, which, as we know, is a thrill beyond compare for her, but nothing quite like being engaged with the rest of us while one of these things is going on. I like it. I just do it on Twitter. I watch that way. And, being online is the way to go, to share this ridiculous mass cultural experience. It's not a debate. You aren't going to learn anything about anybody or how they think or what they might do in office. You're just going to see the show, essentially. What will cause Donald Trump to melt down, and how far Breitbart Alex Jones will he really go? And I don't know. I think I've pretty much gotten over my fear that there would be some kind of physical attack from Donald Trump. Anyway, in all this, there could also still be a attack from someone in the audience, I guess. And why are they having audiences at all? I mean, at this point, all it does is create opportunities for crazy stunts, and it seems to be distracting the Trump team from actually preparing for the debate, not that they were ever going to. Maureen, fan of the show, listening along and tweeting as Maureen2, numeral 2, if you'd like to follow along on Twitter, says the half-brother of Obama is most likely to bring up birtherism and show an Obama as a Trump supporter, plus for trifecta, a black person. I don't even know. I mean, will the cameras even bother to show him? Does anybody care? I mean, maybe I'm living in a bubble, but birtherism is something that Trump claims to have put behind him. Show an Obama as a Trump supporter, but one who can't vote, but that's okay. And then I guess, a black person. We imported somebody who was willing to say that, I don't know what, they support Trump without being able to vote for him. I really just don't know what that's supposed to do for anybody. But then again, I just don't share their sensibilities, so maybe I'll never get it. All right. Well, we thank everybody for tuning in, and thank you to Bill in Portland, Maine, who starts us off, as always, with a morning tweet. You now know, of course, that Daily Kos Radio is live. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, and Joan McCarter, that's Joan McCarter, will preview tonight's debate by throwing shoes at TVs. Very likely part of our routine, although I'm wearing very heavy boots these days. They really help with the heel spurs, Donald, in case you were looking for something to work on that. The heel support and arch support that they provide has been a real godsend, I would say. And you're into God, right? Okay. Well, at any rate, Greg Dworkin will also be watching the debate, and he'll also be here to preview tonight's debate. And I guess we'll wrap up on the last of the pre-debate polls. And I don't know whether they'll show anything different than the post-debate polls, unless actually Trump does, in fact, melt into a puddle at some point during tonight, or create a puddle of any kind around his feet for any reason. I assume that would impact the polls. Otherwise, I can't imagine much is going to happen in terms of preferences, but hey, who knows? Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. I think that the real debate about the debate, includes, as you pointed out, who Trump's going to bring and who he's going to have in the front row, but also who Hillary is going to bring to the front row. Varying opinions on this.
Does she usually bring people? Haven't even really paid attention to that.
Well, nobody does, but I'm thinking she should bring David Farenholt and David K. Johnson and maybe Kurt Eichenwald, and just have them stare right at Trump, or maybe his biographer.
Maybe. Oh, that would be a good idea.
Bring ex-wives. And I was kind of leaning toward that last night, but I decided this morning I think the best possible thing to do would be to bring Alec Baldwin. Yeah,
I saw that suggested last night on Twitter, in particular, bringing Alec Baldwin dressed in his Trump costume.
Exactly.
That would be pretty funny.
She could bring 4 or 5 Trump imitators.
That would also be interesting.
Her side of the audience with people who look like Trump.
All just standing there pouting and going,
plus
Yeah,
Kate McKinnon.
believe me.
And what would happen, dressed as Hillary, and Trump would start to debate Kate McKinnon and ignore Hillary on stage, and I think that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Because it would really sum up exactly what's going on here.
Yeah. And I understand. So yesterday, President Obama spoke and I guess did his part to try to needle Trump into an agitated debate performance.
Just go ahead and start performing and stop whining about the election.
Well, he's not whining. He's winning. Yay.
Well, he spelled it wrong.
Yeah.
There are some important things about that today.
All right, then. Well, fine.
I think the most important, and okay, you're going to make fun of this, but
elves.
No. The piece from Marco Rubio.
Elves.
I will not discuss any issue that has become public solely on the basis of WikiLeaks. As our intelligence agencies have said, these leaks are an effort by a foreign government to interfere with our electoral process. I will not indulge it. Further, I want to warn my fellow Republicans who may want to capitalize politically on these leaks. Today is the Democrats, tomorrow it could be us. End of statement. Armando saw that and immediately got to the right conclusion. My goodness, the polls must look pretty bad in Florida.
Yeah, or they have something about Marco Rubio somehow.
Well, all moralizing by politicians, all of it.
Yes.
Based on polls.
Very likely. Yeah, WikiLeaks,
you have to give them credit for this, credit where credit is due, and credit to all the Republicans who have pushed back on the whole idea that the election is rigged.
That's nice of them.
It is. Why are they doing that? Because that sort of talk depresses turnout, and it hurts Republicans, and naturally they're saying that. And on the other side of the coin, Steve Bannon and Donald Trump don't care. Oh. So that's part of the Republican Civil War that we see playing out in real time.
Yeah, not only do they not care, I think in some cases it's said that they are actively interested in defeating incumbent Republicans that they don't like.
Yeah, the thing is...
Well, I mean, I am too, but...
They may not even pick out individual Republicans. I don't think they're that granular. I don't think they really have that formed. I don't think they know enough about politics to know who's running in which district. But if the Democrats take the House, they take down Paul Ryan.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it's their biggest rival.
Okay.
Because post-loss, then it's going to be a debate as to who's really the leader of the party.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, when you have a strong leader like Nancy Pelosi, sometimes even moving back into the minority doesn't undo the leadership. But this Republican leadership has been shaky from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And even if, you don't take down Ryan entirely, although Trump is working hard to do that, taking out 20 of his minions and leaving everybody else that's left with a diminished Republican majority made up mostly of nutters.
Yes.
If Ted Yoho is and clones are your entire Republican majority, you got problems.
Yeah. I wonder what Paul Ryan would do if they were to lose the majority. Well, of course, ordinarily the Republican Speaker would then stand for minority leader, but that isn't going to work with this Republican conference. And if that can't happen, they'll very often just resign. They just resign from Congress, period. There's nothing for me to do here. Having been Speaker, I'm not going back to the back benches. But that also usually happens, very often like midterms when the guy can then gear up for running for president next. This would really be something. He'd have to sit as a lame duck forever.
You know what?
Yeah.
Heck with it. I'm done.
And just that'd be it. I'm out of politics. That would be amazing.
Bye.
Yeah, okay. So keep that in mind, I guess, going to the polls, wherever you are. You don't have to be in Paul Ryan's district to get rid of him. Just get rid of your local Republican or help the neighboring Republican be gotten rid of. And that'd probably be the end of him.
So I just want to read this because it's from a sweeter time, an older time.
Okay.
The date is January 20th, 1993. The letter is from George H.W. Bush to the incoming Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, Dear Bill, when I walked into this office just now, I felt the same sense of wonder and respect that I felt 4 years ago. I know you will feel that too. This is probably left on the desk for him. I wish you great happiness here. I never felt the loneliness some presidents have described. There will be very tough times, made even more difficult by criticism you may not think is fair. I'm not a very good one to give advice, but just don't let the critics discourage you or push you off course. You will be our president when you read this note. I wish you well. I wish your family well. Your success now is our country's success. I'm rooting hard for you. Good luck, George. And that was from George H.W. Bush. And that is the kind of, look, I lost and it's fair kind of discussion, going back to Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln. And, that's what's extremely lacking in the Trump persona and claims. And that's part of the reason why, I mean, as hokey as you may think it is, I think that's part of the reason why his support is collapsing. And by the way, it is collapsing. We have a new Bloomberg poll out, which has not been overly friendly to Clinton. This is the Ann Seltzer poll, national. Donald Trump would need to stage a historic comeback to win the White House in 20 days as key slices of the electorate drift away from his candidacy. Democrat Hillary Clinton leads Trump by 9 points, taken after a leaked video. Support for Trump among critical groups of voters, including men and the less educated, has weakened in the campaign's closing days, a trajectory that could translate into a landslide loss for Republicans in the Electoral College and setbacks in down-ballot races that will determine control of the House and Senate. This poll shows movement toward Clinton with all the right groups it takes to win, including men and those without a college degree. Their alignment with Clinton is a formidable challenge in the algebra, says Ann Seltzer.
Algebra. Wow.
After trailing among men throughout the summer, Clinton's now winning 46 of their support in a hypothetical two-way compared to 44 for Trump. She's winning with men.
Oh.
She's already ahead with women by 17.
Go men.
She has a 1-point edge among white women, 46 to 45. Okay, and among those with no college degree, which has been Trump's base, Clinton leads 48 to 44.
Huh.
Among whites with college degrees,
yeah,
she expanded her lead to 13 points. That would be historic in and of itself.
Yes.
And here's the thing. She's winning for 93% of Democrats, and Trump is getting 85% of Republicans, something that Mark Blumenthal also pointed out, the mystery pollster, the Survey Monkey guy, that Clinton is increasing her support among the Democratic base. Hello, that includes millennials. Thank you, Bernie. And Trump is getting 85% of Republicans, and he's not growing that.
Okay. Is there any demographic he's leading in anymore?
Yeah, left-handed political operatives who happen to be family members.
I see.
And also those who use Pepe the Frog as their avatar on Twitter.
Well, yeah. What about the American bald eagle avatars?
Yeah, well, some of those are actually going Clinton.
Yeah.
I've seen that on Twitter. It's kind of interesting.
That is interesting. And so I guess, if you've changed your handle to deplorable, whatever your name is, or put Pepe the Frog in there, I guess that's it. Those are the people.
Here's another thing. This is no news to you. If Trump does become the nation's next president, 59% of Clinton supporters said they'll be panicked.
Yeah.
But fewer than half of Trump supporters said that of Clinton.
Oh. Well, that's good.
In other words, she's winning them over little by little by little. Now, they still claim that in this poll that slightly more are enthused for Trump than Clinton, 65 to 58. Don't forget, we're still 3 weeks out.
Yes, and there's plenty of time to lose your enthusiasm.
Yeah. The last time a presidential candidate won the popular vote by more than 9 points was Ronald Reagan in 1984.
Okay.
Of interest, what about the House? Narrowly divided. It's a 4-point lead for the Democrats, although other polls have it as high as 7. The thing about all of this, don't forget, is that it's 3 weeks out. This kind of collapse usually happens the last week.
Oh.
So there's still time to make it even worse. Steve Schmidt on Morning Joe this morning. What's the over-under on a possible Electoral College victory for Clinton? Schmidt says she's trending over 400. She's close to Texas. You have to get Texas to get over 400, really. I mean, I suppose there's other ways to get there, but that's the way to get to 400. And she's down 3 points in Texas. There's another poll out. She's up 4 in Arizona today. I mean, this is a blowout, and Schmidt and others who have good context, Mike Murphy, other people who are on, are still talking about the fact that internal polls are even worse, and that the Republicans they know are just in flat-out panic mode.
All right. That's good.
That's amidst rumors that there's yet another different Oppo drop to come, one last one.
Really?
We'll see. We'll see if that actually happens. Other things I want to highlight, though. Silly stuff.
Yes.
There's a column from Kathleen Parker in the Post today, how Trump could still win.
Oh, sure.
And the answer is the polls are wrong and my gut feeling is right.
She wrote that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And people make fun of data journalists, and I do a little bit this election because it's getting a little bit too silly. It's 89.6. No, it's 87.2. That's actually the same. It's gone from 51% Clinton win to 93% in a week. No, it hasn't. It's been steady the entire time. We talked about that yesterday. So there's a little bit there to make fun of. But when you read columns like this, you step back and look at the big picture and say, thank goodness for data journalists because this is such crap.
Ugh. I don't even know what to say to it at this point.
I mean, she literally says the polls must be wrong.
Sure. They must.
She says, I love this, the upshot, that's the one that Nate Cohn runs over at the New York Times. The upshot is we're checking out if only to feel statistically significant. Or perhaps they feel there's no reason to vote. If the statisticians, prognosticators, and risk takers seem to have already figured it out, why bother? Then again, models only work if people behave as they tend to, and, crucially, if they tell the truth when polled, give or take a hedge here and there. In a campaign season featuring daily tallies in which candidate is the bigger liar, why would everyday Americans feel any compunction about offering non-truths? More likely, voters may feel embarrassed by what they believe. Trump wins at liar's dice. So she believes that the reason that the polls are wrong is because people are just lying to the pollsters. The dislikers and undecideds together form the unknowables. This election's monstrous, unquantifiable X factor, most of them, I predict, will fall for Trump, not because he's the better candidate, because two-thirds of Americans think the country's galloping in the wrong direction, the usual remedy for which is switch horses. In other words, pretty good guess. And by the way, even NFL great Adam Vinatieri has missed a 31-yard field goal. That's everybody likes to use the analogies. Well, a 15% chance of Trump winning is the same thing as an NFL place kicker missing a 31-yard field goal.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not, actually, because a lot of this is a lot more fixed than that. Oh. And in fact, if you look at the Daily Kos site, Sam Wang and many of the others were talking about 94, 95% chance of winning anyway.
Yes.
So that 15% was like old news from 3 weeks ago. Do you not pay attention? Today, the upshot she mentions, 92% chance to win. And the other forecasts, 538 the gloomiest, 87, HuffPost pollster, 94, PredictWise the markets, 90, Sam Wang, 98, and Daily Kos, 95. I mean, we're talking about single figures in most cases. The only person who thinks it might be as high as 13 is 538, and they're wrong.
Oh. How did they get so wrong?
Because they put their finger on the scale deliberately. They do it in advance. It's not jiggering it as it goes along like some of the other, suspect pollsters. But they've decided that this one is a Republican-leaning poll, so we'll just add points to it. And this one is a Democratic-leaning poll, and we'll just take away points from it. And so they get their mix because they've decided that, you should do that. I'm not sure you should do that. And they also figure in certain fundamentals. So
they're experimenting with a little bit of gut journalism.
They are. And they're also going by historical. And this is going to be interesting as we get closer to the election, and you'll see because of this a sudden upswing in the 538 predictions. They figure that swing states all move together.
Like aspens.
Because they always have.
Okay.
But in this election, we've seen Florida, North Carolina, Virginia go one way, and Iowa and Ohio go another way at the same time. As Clinton is picking up strengths and making Virginia and Colorado not swing states anymore and leading Florida by 4 points or so. It's still tied in Ohio, and Iowa becomes Trump's best state. So in the Midwest and the Southeast move in different directions. You can't say that the swing states move simultaneously in the same way. However, as Clinton runs up the score here and gets an 8 and 9 point lead in the polls, maybe they will. And if that happens, 538's prediction prognosticator, their tool, their simulator, will bounce too.
All right.
So, all interesting.
Yes.
But there's no question that things are accelerating. Is today's debate really going to change anything? Most people think not.
Yeah.
So, to finish off here, before you let Joan come on and tell us what's really going on, I have some right-wing pieces. I just always think they're interesting. I'm the kind of guy, like, if I'm a Yankees fan and they beat the Red Sox, I like to read the Boston Globe.
Oh.
Rather than the New York Times. It's just so much more satisfying to read the results.
I see.
And the analysis.
I see, okay.
So I'm looking at the right-wing pundits just to see what they're going to say. This is John Podhoretz, The Rigging.
The rigging.
Responsible thinkers, pundits, and reasonable people everywhere are up in arms about Donald Trump's efforts to invalidate the November 8th results.
Yeah.
From Matt K. Lewis and our own Max Boot, among conservatives to Brian Stelter among mainstream media types, the Chris Hayes of MSNBC and the left, there's unity in the idea that Trump has somehow crossed the Rubicon that threatens our democracy like nothing he has said before. It's wonderful to hear this kind of public civics lesson, and I hope everybody listens, but it's entirely beside the point. Trump contradicts himself and says two different things in the same sentence and is an enemy to coherence except in this way. The rigging argument is the beating heart of his candidacy and has been since he began it. Of course he says the election's rigged. His entire narrative about the condition of the United States is that the system's rigged. The trade deals are rigged. The tax system's rigged. The media's rigged. The justice system is rigged. There's something going on here, folks, is a mantra he's used in his rallies for 16 months now.
Yes.
Notice he ignores the people of color part of that, but, he's on right. His chief political consigliere was and is likely Roger Stone, brilliant operative, hyper-conspiratorialist. The dominating theory of conspiratorialists is that everything is rigged. That's what conspiracies are. JFK assassination, Warren Commission, Flight 800, fire can't melt steel, the crack academic is an inside CIA job. The birther claim, if you think about it, against President Obama and its associated offshoots are a sinister retelling of the past 55 years of American history, in which large-scale forces we don't understand conspire to take a half-African, half-white kid born in Kenya, make him wholly American, work this system so he can get into Columbia, pay his bills, and at Harvard Law School, ghostwrite his memoir, buy him a house, release the sealed custody records of his senatorial rival, and secure him the presidency.
Yes.
The biggest rigging of them all, the fact that if he wanted a Manchurian candidate, baby Barry Obama would have been the least likely choice anyone would ever have made in 1961, and that's besides the point. Clearly some visionary or time traveler who knew the time would be ripe in 2008. Think about how this argument was assembled out of fragments and pieces and bits, and you get a sense of how conspiratorialist rigged the mindset works. Really, you have to look at Alex Jones. None of it makes sense individually. I threw in the Alex Jones part.
Oh, okay.
And taken as a whole, it's the province of bad suspense fiction, but put it together and it resembles a pointillist painting of America as seen from the perspective of a malign grand engineer. The ultimate point is control of the levers of political power. So, of course, the way the votes are cast is rigged as well. But this part of the argument has been the primary province not of the right until recently, but the left.
Oh.
It's our fault, don't you know? Florida recount in 2000, 2004 vote, manipulated by Diebold, state of Ohio closed polling places, yada, yada, yada. Now, you and I and many on Daily Cost fought really hard about the 2004 stuff.
Yes.
2000 speaks for itself. And what else is the assertion of voter suppression in response to voter ID laws but an implicit charge of vote rigging against anyone and everyone who seeks such legislation? It is astounding to me, not him, that you can just blow off the disenfranchising of people of color because, it's the same as what Trump.
Yeah, man, it's a conspiracy theory.
It's a conspiracy theory, right?
Like Clockwork Elf.
Except for the court saying it's not.
Yes, right, and 50-year history of.
It doesn't have to be debated, and this doesn't have to be defended. The courts have spoken. It is an attempt to push the election. There's no question. It's a fact. You can't argue it. It's been established by the courts. However, I do agree with him that the 2004 election was stolen is nuts. Now, were there concerns brought up about voting machines? Yeah, we're seeing them now that the Russians are trying to hack them.
The machines themselves?
Machines need paper trails so you can check them later just in case.
Yeah.
And the reason people don't isn't because it's a conspiracy. It's because it costs money. And it also requires a degree of local electoral competence that sadly is often lacking.
Oh, well, that's true.
And the same thing with the polling places. Sometimes it's a conspiracy. In other words, you have many, many polling machines in the white suburbs, and you have one in the entire inner city, that kind of thing. But sometimes it's just incompetence.
It's definitely true. We run into plenty of incompetence, no doubt. Interesting, though, that all of that goes under conspiracy theory if you want to sweep it under the rug, I guess. And then
and somehow semi-apologize for Trump, which she's not really doing. But, it's the point really here for me is that you'd think that Trump and never-Trumpers and all the people who are basically almost allies in this last part of the election to defeat him would be able to simply say he's awful. But when you've had beat into your system for 30 years that the Clintons are evil and yada yada, you got to throw in these things. You got to throw in these last, well, yeah, of course he's crazy, but then again, so is the left. I mean, you have to throw in, again, but so is the left, because you can't not do it. The temptation to just add those things and ruin a piece are just too strong. And you see it all over. So for those of us who read the right side of the blogosphere and media, you just have to get used to it and internalize it and say, listen, you expect that. I don't hold it against him. It's nothing to rant about. He'd almost not be a right-wing commentator if he didn't throw that in. But it still doesn't obscure the bigger point about what's really going on here. And so he finishes, if Trump loses, the point he and his toadies will make is that he lost the whole thing even before he began. The marionetteers are pulling the strings, and the people must rise up to take on the puppet masters, which means if I'm right, he's not going anywhere, and his assault on the nation's social and political compact has only just begun. And he may well be right about that, even though he's wrong about, what he says about the left. Meanwhile, he and many others, here's a piece on Medium, Scholars and Writers Against Trump. We are writers, academics, critics, historians, and authors who have voted for Republican presidents and candidates. Given our choices in the presidential election, we believe that Donald Trump is a candidate most dangerous to our nation's founding ideals. He's a unique and dire threat to the political principles, liberties, and cultural values of justice, fairness, honesty, and decency we have long defended. We urge you to vote, as we will, for someone else. They leave it there. And they have people like Jonathan Adler, the Case Western Reserve law professor, who blogs at the Washington Post. They have Max Boot, who's a counsel on foreign relations. They have Podorz, who we were just reading. They got a bunch of other people, like 140 some odd dames. And it's a useful exercise to really separate out who is and who is not on the Trump train.
140 names? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I mean, it's growing.
Okay. Yeah, for a second there, I was like, did you just say 140 dames? That seems rather sexist. But okay, probably not.
Names. There is nothing like a name.
Right.
Nothing in this world. So,
all the chicks are signing.
Yeah. South Pacific. Anyway, Donald Trump is on a presidential death march we've never seen before. This is fantastic. This is from Tim Miller, who's the former comms director for Jeb Bush.
Huh.
Relatively short, but it is worth a read in every word.
Donald
Trump is on a presidential death march we've never seen before. A political survivor describes what it means when a campaign fails and how this bizarre election cycle is exposing the worst in Trump.
Okay. The ringer, huh?
Donald Trump is going to lose this election. His campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, is going to lose this election. Even if they would never admit it, they know Donald Trump will never be president. Trump and Conway are on the political death march. This, to be clear for the Trump fans, is a political metaphor, not an actual death wish.
Okay.
You got to be clear with these people because they're very concrete.
Well, it's okay. Yes,
right.
I guess so. I mean, they're marching. Right. They might die.
If they see, and a lot of the, a few of the people on the left see,
he's got heel spurs.
That if there's a WikiLeaks John Podesta email back and forth with a reporter, and the reporter is obsequious and nice and fawning because they're trying to squeeze some information out, that's therefore obvious that it's a conspiracy.
Yes. That's the telltale sign of conspiracy.
Right.
Lots of conspirators are very nice to one another.
Yeah, overly nice sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Buttering them up, you might even say. Oh my gosh, look at this. They're talking politics. This, one of the fun parts is the leaking of Podesta's list of who he was considering for vice president.
Yes. I don't know why that's damaging.
Who cares? What difference does it make? A lot of the people that were on the list, like Mike Bloomberg, were never asked. And so what? And how is this in any way, shape, or form relevant? It's private information that was stolen by the Russians and put out as a disinformation campaign. And what are you even looking at it for? By the way, you know who said that? Marco Rubio.
Oh. Well, that guy is a genius.
Yeah, well, actually, he's right about this. Anyway, this is the part of a losing campaign that exposes the true character of all those involved. So it should come as no shock that Donald Trump and his staff are failing this test in the most shameful and divisive manner imaginable. Trump knows he's on a death march, which is why he's reverted to his purest id over the past few days, belittling women who he's alleged to have sexually assaulted, concocting racist conspiracy theories about the global elites, that's not alleged, he's actually doing that, and minority communities rigging the election, and proffering bombastic lies about his opponent that he knows cable news can't help but cover. You know, like about her health, for example.
Yes, right.
The death march is why Conway has begun to resurrect a time-honored practice, duplicitous political operatives throwing their boss under the bus to try to save face. In an attempt to preserve a lucrative fee on the public speaking circuit after the campaign, Conway has sent a series of tweets over the past week trying to position herself as both in on the joke with Saturday Night Live and the conscience on Trump's shoulder trying to get him to behave. And remember, that Saturday Night Live Kellyanne Conway day off, you just have to see it because basically Kellyanne Conway plays Kate McKinnon, not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how she saved his face for this, but it's an.
We'll give you an example. A day off, NBC Saturday Night Live has me down. We got a good laugh in our crazy house. With Jake Tapper. We good? Trump supporter in the back shouting at the candidates, stay on the issues. And Kellyanne Conway tweets, that was me. I was there.
Yes.
I mean, you know, awful stuff. Anyway, the conscience, as a fellow anti-Trump conservative pointed out, Conway is officially playing the role of punch clock villain.
I see. Not Clockwork Elf.
Right.
Punch clock villain.
Right. Like a mercenary with none of the sociopathy.
Right.
These are characters who have no real grudge against the heroes, but are simply doing a job they're getting paid for. After hours, they're totally personable Joes who go hang out like everybody else. Most punch clock villains, this is from a TV trope page explaining it, most punch clock villains are not even particularly mean. Even if they are, they could see their jobs as a chore, or there for the reward, and they more than likely couldn't care less for the plan itself. It used to be an odd device, but has become increasingly frequent due to the popularity of superhero parody, where minions are portrayed as sympathetic employees for unreasonable bosses. Think about the Superman movies where Lex Luthor's, you know, second in command.
Yes.
Kind of a dopey, funny figure.
Right. I forget what they call that.
That's your typical punch clock villain.
Okay. Like Grover Dill.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
To a casual observer, this behavior might seem counterproductive to the goal Trump and Conway share winning the election, but the reality is the only goal either has in mind right now is self-preservation. The death march to an inevitable political loss is an emotionally taxing slog that's harder to psychologically deal with than I think many people appreciate, having been on the losing end of a number of races. Seriously. I have seen the many different ways that candidates and staff handle the losses. It's one of the great tests of character that I have seen up close. Every utterance is just for signs you're acknowledging defeat. Every supporter you talk to either needs a pick-me-up or wants to offer advice. Every tweet or article you read about yourself or your campaign is caked with the stink of impending defeat. In some ways, it must be akin to being the quarterback for the 0-6 Browns, having to suit up for 10 more games knowing there's no hope for the playoffs. You know, if you're a Republican male, you're going to use football terminology to try to explain politics. It's just a given. I'll skip that because I don't really care. The first losing candidate I worked for was a Marine veteran, and he compared the final losing stretch to boot camp. He said to me, Tim, I thought when I signed up for boot camp I could handle anything for 12 weeks, but I never realized how long 12 weeks could be until I lived them 1 second at a time. And he talked about how good Jeb Bush was because Bush at least didn't blame his candidate. He didn't blame his campaign. He didn't blame his staff. He said, if I lose, it's my fault. Don't forget, he's a Bush guy who's writing this, but still. Yet, every day, you have to wake up with steely resolve and go out in the world and make the case for why you or your candidate are the best person to lead, even when it appears you won't. Why people should ignore all the polls and news and the criticism and put their faith in you, even when you've already lost faith that you can actually win. It can be too much for staffers to bear. And he talks about McCain's campaign in 2007 and 8. He was working for the campaign in Iowa. News came down that there were going to be layoffs. When I was brought into the campaign manager's office to hear my fate, I am embarrassed to report I was overcome with despair after I heard the news. I had been retained. My death march was going to continue. As hard as it is on the staff, it's the candidate who faces the real test, and some candidates fail badly. I've seen them lash out at the staff, descend into depression, point fingers, talks about how Jeb handled it well. But these candidates who handle losing poorly often has the basic decency or self-awareness to attempt to fake it, or at minimum, they feel a faint sense of responsibility to a democratic system that is based on a peaceful transfer of power. None of that is in Donald Trump's character. Trump does not place value in virtue. There will be no trying to go out with his head held high. There's only the low road. There's only an emotional toddler lashing out because he hasn't been given what he wants. When a man whose entire candidacy and public standing is predicated on the myth he's a winner has to face every single moment are reminded he's going to face one of the biggest, most humiliating losses in presidential history on the biggest stage imaginable, you better believe he will lash out. And I say that with respect to figuring out what's going to happen at the debates tonight.
Yes. No
We
respect
cannot
for
predict exactly the manner it will play out, but we've seen the embers, and they are ugly.
Yeesh. Well,
Okay?
what a day.
So, shameful. Over the past week, the campaign deployed the surrogates to go after women who made sexual assault claims against Trump. Despicable. Monday morning, Trump reiterated the claim he'll lose only because of imagined widespread voter fraud. Pathetic. As Obama strategist David Axelrod said, presidential campaigns are like MRIs for the soul. This is the campaign that Trump, his family, and his campaign manager have chosen to run. It's exposed a darkness unlike any we have ever seen. The only silver lining of this noxious behavior is that hopefully it will further expose to some of my fellow conservatives just how unfit Donald Trump is for the White House and forever taint those who enabled him and encouraged his election. Until then, death march on.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. And speaking of those who would be tainted, I didn't put aside, but I did see circulating today, I think Slate put out maybe a list of 25 unforgivables people whose role in the Trump nomination and candidacy can never be forgotten and never should be forgotten and are chiefly responsible for. Everybody knows who's pretty much on the list, of course, but we're cataloging this stuff now.
Right. Anyway, I will leave you with that. Get ready to scoot off to work. Hopefully Joe McCarter will join you a little bit later, but it gives you an idea. Lady, dame, it's just, I can't help it. It's all so sexy. I'll tell you one piece about that, which I thought was awfully interesting. This is a piece from Huffington Post pollster that Natalie Jackson puts together, and Ariel Edwards-Levy, the polling editor and staff reporter.
Two broads,
who say the partisanship divides reaction to the Trump scandals. Americans are more likely than not to consider the sexual assault allegations against Donald Trump credible, according to a new HuffPost YouGov poll, but opinions are deeply divided along party lines, with many Republicans saying that even if true, and this is astounding, even if true, the allegations aren't enough to disqualify him for the presidency.
Whoa, if true.
If the allegations are true, 44% of Americans say they should disqualify Trump. 27% say it would be relevant, but not disqualifying.
Okay.
And 22% believe it wouldn't be relevant to the election.
All righty then.
19% of Republicans think the claims would be disqualifying. 39% plurality say that even if it were proven that Trump sexually assaulted women, it would not be relevant to the election.
Okay.
Right? You read that, you go, okay. And they point out partisan divides go deeper than just the response to Trump. Feelings about the broader topic of sexual assault are also significantly polarized. As a political scientist, Michael Tesler, noted this week, Republicans, especially those who supported Trump in the primaries, were already more likely than others to believe that women who complain about harassment often causes more problems than they solve.
Aren't they the real racists?
Well, I read this, and my first approach was to say, you know what? The problem with the Republican Party is that, there's too many white men.
Yeah, I guess that's really it. But it's
if they could do something
about
that,
dynamic.
I think the party as a whole would be a lot more sensible.
Yes. Same dynamic, though. I mean, by bringing up issues of race, you're the real racist. By bringing
Something
up
along those
issues
lines,
about
but
sexual
it's
assault,
astounding.
Yeah. Well, they never take the blame for anything, even though, they're all upset because they're losing the ability to dictate the culture and the agenda as they have for the 200 plus years of our existence, and then I guess all the colonial era beforehand. But somehow they're not responsible for any of it. That is weird.
Yeah, they do have more data in there if you want to take a look later. But on the same page just happens that they have their presidential forecast, which makes you feel a little bit better about it, and that is that Clinton has a 94.3% chance of winning, Trump has a 5.5 chance, and as each day clicks off, that number for Trump's going to go down.
Clickety.
Clickety-click. So, thanks again. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman. Kagro in the morning. Here it is in the morning.
Yes.
And you'll take the show from here. We'll listen later to see on podcast what you said. Thanks so much, folks, for listening one way or the other. I really do enjoy these talks with David, even let him talk every once in a while.
Yeah, I enjoy them because it's nap time.
You get that breakfast, which is the main thing. All right, take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Greg. I'll have a breakfast ready to go tomorrow. Oh, I'm being asked to rate the call. Today's call is excellent. They knew it. All right. So, I'll give them a rating. Why not? All right. What else is going on here? I will round up. We'll do lightning round, I guess, for what passes for lightning round on this show. Anyway, just ticking off the various items that I have seen flicker across the screen. Some of them will actually move quickly because I don't know anything about them. Kate Sherrill, frequent contributor to the show via Twitter and using the hashtag KITM, Kagro in the morning, although we actually share that with at least one other podcast that I'm aware of, but we tend to dominate that one. That will help you, by the way, if you tweet to me at KagroX, Kagrox, in case you need help spelling it, and throw the hashtag on there. That'll keep it up on my screen a little while longer and increase the chances that I'll actually be able to find it, as I have a KITM column that doesn't move nearly as quickly as my what they call notifications column in TweetDeck. Any mentions of my name or tweets directly to me. That tends to move pretty quickly. But she just, since we were already talking about people being thrown under the bus, here's a situation in which it has actually happened. Police cracked down on a demonstration outside of the U.S. Embassy in Manila, and I am not sure what that's about. Ends with police van ramming into protesters. And you can actually literally see people under the bus in this photo, and it's accompanied by an "oh my God" comment, and I agree with Kate on that one. I mean, they're literally like feet sticking out from under this bus. I can't tell in what state these folks are in. It doesn't look like any of them are crushed, but I don't imagine they're doing all that well. Luckily, it's got a high clearance on the undercarriage there, and it looks like people who are underneath this van might have been knocked to the ground pretty hard, but might survive the encounter. So I don't know. I'm curious what they're protesting there. I mean, hell, it could be anything. But let me just click through and see if I can find out, because some of you need to know what's happening in the Philippines. Outside the U.S. Embassy in Manila, a protest against the U.S. military presence in the Philippines ended with a violent police crackdown. Nothing tops off an anti-militarism protest like running people over with armored police vans. Although this one's not armored. This one looks more like, I don't know whether those sides come down, but it actually looks more like an airport shuttle than anything else. But I wouldn't want to be run over by one of those either. So there you have it. I mean, nutshell, the protesting. I thought it was interesting alongside the fact that the Philippine president, Duterte, whose name I pronounced correctly, then assumed I was pronouncing incorrectly, but then was assured that it really is Duterte, D-U-T. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it all that well, but it's not Duerte, which is what my first assumption was, but Duterte. Anyway, this guy was in the news not long ago because of his extraordinarily weird critical comments about President Obama, and now the protests about the military presence. I don't know if that's the same crowd. Complex place, the Philippines, as it turns out, complex like Taiwan, which we learned the other day. And by the way, our contributor there still continues to send us additional articles about it, which I'm reading for background, although I'm finding it increasingly difficult to squeeze in mention of anywhere else other than our own dumpster fire of America during the election season. It's pretty tough, and we're pretty much concentrating on domestic politics here. Anyway, so let's see. Other things that have flitted by, which deserves some mention. We didn't get to this yesterday. Julian Assange of WikiLeaks is pretty sure he's being targeted by all the bad people in the world, and that the United States has cut off his internet access. Of course, he is living in, I guess, self-imposed, well, not really self-imposed, but there's a good bit of it that's self-imposed, I suppose. Anyway, he's living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London on account of there being international warrants out for his arrest for alleged sexual assaults and rapes in Sweden, which he alleges is all being rigged up. And I suppose when you're the kind of person who is making enemies of national governments across the globe by allegedly releasing their deepest, darkest secrets, you're going to come to believe that there's all kinds of incredible state plotting against you. And there may even be incredible state plotting against you. And I am sure that he lays the blame for this at the feet of the United States, but I guess the raw facts of it are that the proximate cause of his loss of internet access is, in fact, the Ecuadorian government saying, we don't want him, we're fine sheltering him in the embassy for whatever reason, because that's our extradition policy and that's the way we are about things, and I don't know why, and it's probably deep and complex and nuanced in a way that I'll never get around to explaining on the show, but it's worth exploring perhaps. Anyway, they're fine sheltering him, but the idea of providing him with probably free internet access to, I don't know what, meddle in the United States election, I don't know. I don't know why Ecuador, I guess they were willing to tolerate a certain amount of monkeying with the U.S. election, because why not? I don't know what the U.S. history in Ecuador actually is versus other countries in the region, but I guess it's probably fair to assume that we haven't been really super awesome to the Ecuadorians. So maybe maybe it comes from that. But I guess at some point they say, it's really in our best interest to take under advisement what was probably a United States suggestion to the Ecuadorian diplomatic community, that we would view it favorably if they could maybe tell Julian to shut the hell up for a little while. Which is, I don't know. I got mixed feelings about that. I'm not mixed about the question of, I know a lot of people who are Julian Assange and WikiLeaks supporters have said, well, what is this violation of his First Amendment rights? I guess we feel compelled to point out that, where is Assange from, actually? I don't even know. It's not the United States. But I guess a guy who's not an American citizen, who's living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, having his internet cut off by the Ecuadorian government, which is basically exercising control of the internet in its own embassy, that really, really, really doesn't and never can implicate the First Amendment. You can talk about all sorts of freedom of expression issues in the abstract, but the First Amendment really has nothing to do with that at all. And as you know, the First Amendment implicates state action against freedom of expression in certain channels anyway. And while we might even be willing to afford freedom of expression to non-citizens as against the government, it still has to be the United States government. It can't guarantee your rights as against the Ecuadorian government, especially the Ecuadorian government's prerogative for controlling internet communications and access inside its own ambassadorial properties abroad, no less. So I just can't help you get to the First Amendment on that one. Anyway, well worth pointing out. And the nuanced view of it is, I couldn't say with certainty that the Ecuadorians took it upon themselves to say, you know what, really, we're just tired of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and we have changed our minds about what we want to do for him and what we don't want to do for him. I'm sure there was pressure from the United States and elsewhere, but what can you do? They prevailed upon Ecuador, and Ecuador agreed to do it for whatever reason. He's prevailed upon Ecuador, and they've agreed to shelter him for whatever reason. It's not helping them any. So, all right. They're just accommodating people, the Ecuadorians, I guess. Very nice, wonderful folks, I am sure, living there as they do on the equator. They can see both sides of every issue, you see. Very balanced. Other things that flew by, Talking Points memo caught my eye because they tweet everything out with a photo, which is, by the way, excellent Twitter protocol. And they've got a photo, I guess, of Obama's half-brother. But here's the tweet. It's about this being a debate guest. And the tweet, therefore, begins this way. Debate guests, Trump to bring Obama's half-brother, Clinton inviting Cuban. That would be Mark Cuban, not a random person from Cuba, although that would also work and warranted a second glance, I guess. So there you have it. That's all you really need to know about his inviting him to the debate. I am sure that if I click on this link, I will get a story that will tell me, for instance, Obama's half-brother's name and what he's doing there. But I'll leave that up to you because, honestly, I can't see how it does anything. Here's another lightning round item. Just add this one to the Why Do I Get Up in the Morning files. Don't ask me about how or why. CBS orders a Candy Crush reality series based on the mobile game from Lionsgate. The game is not from Lionsgate. The reality series would be. What is the reality? What's the reality angle on Candy Crush? I don't know. I really don't know. Popular mobile game Candy Crush is headed to television as a new 1 hour. An hour? God damn it! I'm giving away time on television for no reason. Live action game show series on CBS from Wipeout creator, whatever that is, Matt Kunitz. Lionsgate and King, the company behind the game. In the game Candy Crush Saga, players match colorful candies in combinations of 3 or more to win points, defeat obstacles, and progress through the more than 2,000 levels. On the series, and you can see how easily this lends itself to reality television. What we'll do is we'll have people match colorful candies in combinations of 2 or more to win points and defeat obstacles. How will that work? I don't know. I mean, this is actually less crazy than Clockwork Elves, I guess, so I can justify it that way. On the series, teams of 2 people will use their wits and physical agility to compete on enormous interactive game boards featuring next-generation technology to conquer Candy Crush and be crowned the champion. So I guess it's a little bit like American Ninja Warrior meets, these second-generation Tetris derivatives. I don't know. And I don't know. Is it really? This is interesting, too, that they're calling it a reality television show. I guess that the reality TV label is still hot and producible in Hollywood, I guess. It's a little bit like the weird trend toward the end of the 1990s where if you took a company that didn't do anything on the internet but put .com at the end or interactive at the end, you could do an IPO and take your company public and people would buy it because it said .com at the end and they figured you were in on this whole internets thing and you were going to make them a billionaire, so they would just buy it. This isn't a reality show. It's a game show. And although there are reality game shows, game shows are reality shows in the sense that real people participate in them, but that's not a reality show. Neither was The Apprentice really a reality show, but that was at least in the gray area. People participated in it, and the drama of it was that there was supposedly unscripted reactions to things, but Candy Crush, that's just a game show. Is The Price is Right now is a reality show? I guess that, and reality shows, they were hot in Hollywood boardrooms, I guess, because they made money and they were supposedly low cost to produce because all you had to do was follow people around with film crews. There's no special effects, no script writing. You didn't have to hire $1 million an episode stars to do it, but I think part of the savings is gone if you have to construct a giant live-action Candy Crush game board set. And I don't know, whatever. Okay, but just once again, why get up and work for a living when you can just make a Candy Crush TV show. And at this point, people are becoming millionaires. Just say, yeah, well, what's popular right now? People love Greek yogurt. Fantastic. Greek yogurt reality television. It's going to be people eating Greek yogurt for prizes. Why? I don't know. What else is popular? I mean, Angry Birds. Angry Birds movie. Comic books are popular. Make them into a movie. Make them into a television show. I guess that's. What's next? I don't know. What hasn't been made into anything? Can I still pitch Fruit Ninja television? Can I do this? Pokemon Go might actually fly, I guess. But all right, well, no sense in continuing to work for a living. You too should just be out there pitching these things. Let's see, what other fun things have I got open? Not everything is quite as obvious why I still have it open. So I'll skip off of that and on to some of the other things. Let's see. Very interesting other items that I've opened here. Let's see. Here's an interesting one. Raw story covered. CNN panel blows up on Scotty Nell Hughes. I don't know who that is. For defending Trump gawking at naked teen pageant contestants. Well, we'll just read the narrative on that one. As has become her custom since being put on the CNN payroll. Really? Boy, they just hire anybody over there. Trump advocate Scotty Nell Hughes was once again put in a position of defending the indefensible words and actions of GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump, only to gamely try and ultimately fail again. Appearing with host Don Lemon, although typo has him here as Donna Lemon with one N. Doña Lemon. Maybe that's it. Trump booster Andy Dean and commentators Van Jones and Bakari Sellers. Hughes repeatedly denied that Trump ever stormed into beauty pageant dressing rooms. Sorry, Joan. Hold on just a moment. To gawk at the naked or near naked contestants, even though he has admitted to doing so in interviews. Although yesterday's show was all about how maybe he just made that up to gain Howard Stern's approval. But it's problematic that Donald Trump is so worried about the approval of Billy Bush and Howard Stern. And at some point, you're going to have to take him at his word that he does this. And, of course, all the pageant contestants say, yep, he wasn't kidding. He totally does that. So apparently it now falls to Scotty Nell Hughes, which I assume is this kooky-looking blonde woman in the middle of this mixed panel here. So I guess that's her job to defend. How did she defend him? Only by, I guess, saying, hold on, that's not been proven. And Van Jones said he said it himself. And, of course, women have corroborated, or in some cases, teenagers have corroborated it. All right. Well, that's it for the lightning round. Time now to bring Joan McCarter in. Joan, hi, good morning. Are you prepared for this debate? And are you going to be doing a live
I just want to congratulate you on your very special episode. Speaking of Trump and the beauty pageants, for getting a call out from the AV Club.
Oh, I did not notice that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. It was, and the credit, of course, for that episode, the content of that episode goes to the diarist Swedish Jewfish. I've been promoting it.
Which they say.
Yes.
They say under normal circumstances, excuse me, I have a cold, of course.
I can hear it, I'm sorry.
Under normal circumstances, there's not much reason to sort through the archives of a daily political news podcast to listen to something from the previous week. Uh-huh. Exceptions, however, should be made for this particular episode of Daily Kos Radio.
Wow.
Instead of picking apart the day's headlines with frequent call-in guest Greg Dworkin, host David Waldman devotes an entire 2-hour episode to one topic, Donald Trump's unsettling long-time connection to the fashion industry and human trafficking. Wow. Most of the meat for the episode comes from the first part of an extensively researched expose by Daily Kos contributor Swedish Jewfish, but Waldman bolsters it with plenty of commentary and secondary sources.
Hey, I bolstered it.
And even though it originates from a liberal website, it is not a political hit job.
Oh, wow. Well, we did really well there.
Yeah. No. It is intensely unpleasant, but unfortunately necessary. all grossness aside, it's also an intriguing glimpse behind the curtain of a mostly mysterious world. So kudos to you.
Wow. I had no idea that it was so well received. Well, kudos to Swedish Jewfish, who I encouraged to come out with that second installment. I get more notes on Twitter and email about asking when the installment is coming out, and mostly ones that I have to answer by saying, I didn't write it, but I also would like very much to have this second, and we'll definitely read it, and when we do read it, we'll make sure to give Swedish Jewfish a chance to come on and actually discuss it. But I was glad to have the chance to do that, and it's nice that they're listening, and I guess they actually listen to the show on other days, so they know what's going on.
Yeah,
with Greg, and are they not listening on Wednesdays? They don't know you're here.
Apparently, they don't listen on Wednesdays.
Well, okay,
it's okay.
A very special episode. That's funny too, and they took that. And of course, that was like my after-school special days joking reference. It was a special episode. Mostly because I recorded it ahead of time and was off the air while it was playing, but the content too, very special, I thought. And I do see a lot of people talking about this topic. She's really outdone herself, and everyone's waiting on that second issue. Well, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Congratulations to you both.
Hooray!
Good job on that, by the way.
All I did was read it. I bolstered it. They
you
said
bolstered
it right there.
it. They said so.
Yeah, then we'll take their word for it because they're a club. So
right.
They need to be a gang if they want to be as cool as senators. But still, the AV club. All right, wow. I never would have noticed that. Thank you for picking that up. So you got a cold, huh? I don't want to strain your voice too much, but...
Yeah, I might have to call it a little short today.
Well, I can understand that. There's certainly no shortage of content, or potential content, anyway.
Well, you had a segue there. Speaking of senatorial gangs.
Yes.
Marco Rubio has lost the endorsement of all of the major papers in Florida.
All of them? Every single one?
All the four biggies.
Wow.
I'll say, yeah. You told us you weren't going to run for Senate again. You got crushed by Trump. You're back. We're not going to be your consolation prize anymore. So.
Wow. All right. Well, brought it on himself. What can I tell you?
He did bring it on himself, and I'm hoping that the DSCC decides that they've got enough money to put back into Florida to get Patrick Murphy over the line, because I think we could get this one. But for some reason, the powers that be in the Senate committee have decided not to continue spending on this one, and I think it's a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of last-minute money dropping in a lot of places, and I saw up at the top on the front page of Daily Kos over the last couple of days that a lot of that money is going to races that Daily Kos elections folks have targeted as top priorities.
Yes, we were there first,
Yeah.
as is often true with the Daily Kos elections team. They're on top of everything.
Yeah, that's an obsessive group, and rightly so. And yeah, you couldn't be better informed, really, on the state of races everywhere than, there's just no better way. There's a lot of sources you can read, but nothing approaches it quite like Daily Kos elections. So kudos to them.
And all of those sources that you're reading are using Daily Kos elections to inform their work. So there you go.
Yeah, we have good people, as it turns out.
We
knew
do.
this a long time ago. Well, that is, that's a pretty exciting development. I like the idea of making one last ditch effort to wrest away control, obviously, of both the House and Senate. It'd be a miracle to pull it off, but money has been known to produce miracles.
For both of them, yes, it would indeed be a miracle. For the Senate, it's not going to take a miracle.
Right, just good hard work there.
Yeah.
Well, it's a smaller body in terms of the numbers, so it's doable, and of course, they don't have the advantage of gerrymandering there.
No, they don't.
And we've known for a long time. I guess it's been, probably 4 years now that elections watchers have been looking at the Senate field, this class of elections, and saying, yeah, this just sets up terribly for Republicans and always has.
Yeah,
So
just a bad year for Republicans, this class. So, we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. And I would love it if Rubio was one of the ones to fall.
That would be pretty good. It's been a while since there was like a really a good mass knocking off of Republican senators, and I guess it's really 2006.
Well, a few more deserving than him.
Yeah.
And, one of the important things, John Jay wrote about that this morning, one of the important things about getting him specifically is that he's still sort of, for whatever reason, the future of the Republican Party.
Yeah. It's the hair.
It's the hair. It's because they don't have anybody else. Well, Paul Ryan, but...
Yeah, that's funny hair.
So, yeah. Get him. Don't give him this launching pad for 2020.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what 2020 is really going to shape up as a mystery. I'm not anxious to get there.
It really is. We still have Paul Ryan in the wings, but Paul Ryan's fortunes are really going to depend on what happens this election. And he's going to be completely dependent on the Freedom Caucus now. If they lose as many House members as it's looking like they're going to lose, he's going to need that block. Yeah. But at the same time, to get anything through a Democratic Senate, he's going to need Democrats. So Paul Ryan's going to be in a very, very dicey position come January.
And that's even if he continues as Speaker.
Which is,
yeah,
a big question. The Freedom Caucus may have enough clout now to boot him. Ryan might say, why do I need this? And boot himself, although that doesn't seem likely.
No. But yeah, he's got a lot of problems in 2020. I mean, if he's booted entirely, he's got like no base from which to run.
Right, no platform at all to leap off of.
I mean, I guess last year I might have said, well, neither does Jeb Bush have such a platform. No, it's been years since he was governor. Does George Pataki? No, but the fact that I have to bring those guys up and maybe remind you even who George Pataki is will tell you, yeah, that doesn't really work out very well. You really have to be a current elected official or very, very recently out of your elective office or prominent national office anyway. I mean, I guess it's been a while since Hillary Clinton was. But I guess you could just be a completely out of left field kind of guy. But so Jeb Bush's years out of government, George Pataki's years out of government did neither of them any favors. There's just nothing special enough about them to carry them through those gap years. And
it is true of Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Outside of Congress, what has he got?
That's all there is. He's never done anything else. I don't know what else he would rely on. And even if he does remain in the speakership with a narrower majority, he'll be hijacked by the Freedom Caucus daily. And how much of that will he want to put up with? And amazingly enough, though, I mean, this is interesting that the dynamics set up in such a way for the Freedom Caucus, they will, I'm sure, know right away that they've got more leverage because of the smaller size of the presumed Republican majority. Supposing they keep it, they are much more able to leverage their votes and hold bills hostage. And yet, the reason that they'll be able to leverage much more is because of how badly their platform failed.
Right.
That's the amazing part. Well, we're now in more control because our platform was so terrible that we have hardly any Republicans left.
But they function inside that little bubble of the House only. They don't see outside of that.
Which is kind of a good analogy for how Trump got nominated.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Inside our own little club here, we love extremist wackos. And we're sure America will love them too. And then America vomits and wants nothing to do with it. And they say, aha, but we have achieved more power than we've ever had by hewing to this ridiculous line. Let's keep doing it. It's not majority power. It's not controlling power. It's just power over the losing side.
And I see no reason to think that they wouldn't continue this. I see little reason to think we don't have them so upset over Paul Ryan dumping Trump and whatever else that they don't allow a government shutdown in December.
Yeah. I don't know.
So just, to put this out there for folks, it doesn't all end November 8th. The nightmare will not be over on November 9th.
And it'll just move to a new venue. You'll have the Freedom Caucus trying to decide who should they invite to the voting for the speakership to unnerve and undermine Paul Ryan. And Barack
Maybe
Obama's
a member of Hamas. That one I just don't get at all.
I didn't get even to that angle on it. I was just so astounded that they thought that Hillary Clinton would care that Barack Obama's half-brother was there. But I forgot about he's supposed to be an embarrassment to Obama because he supports Hamas, which people do. It's a political party, believe it or not, with a military terrorist wing. That's true. Also true of the IRA and Sinn Féin. Don't forget that. White terrorism sucks too. And how that's embarrassing to Clinton, I have no idea. And then how it's supposed to square with his I'm going to defeat all the terrorists to invite Hamas supporters to the debate. I don't know. Nobody knows. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, Obama's brother, well, okay.
Maybe
I'm sure Hillary
Obama,
Clinton's going to care.
Yeah. If she had a brother, bring him. But
I guess this is the only way the campaign is allowing him to attack back against the Obamas. Because they've been pretty hard on him. And he can't directly attack them, particularly Michelle. They've been needling and pushing, and there's nothing he can do because they are so hugely popular. And I think the campaign has probably convinced him of that. So he has to do these crazy things.
Yeah, I really don't know who I guess it's Steve Bannon has convinced him that this inviting people to the debate thing will work. That's the only place I can see that getting a good reception is in Breitbart world, where they are sure that that's a mortal embarrassment to somebody, even if it's not Hillary Clinton. I can't imagine why she would care about that. And frankly, I'm pretty certain that Barack Obama says, meh, what do okay. I'm not there. So
what a strange thing.
Yeah, they just they are sure that everything is a conspiracy. Everything is I don't know. So somehow they've convinced themselves they're really like a James O'Keefe thing, or any of these emails for that matter. We've caught campaign staffers for Hillary Clinton strategizing about things.
Yes.
Wow, do
My
they do
goodness.
that? That's amazing. Holy cow. Although I guess the real triumph is in getting mainstream media to print those things as stories. Like, did you know that they were haggling over which state to visit? Or did you know that they were trying to consider their positions so that they could actually win support? Really? You got me there.
Who does that?
Oh, my. Gotta dab my forehead here. I'm really worried about that. I don't know what motivates that, but okay. Well, will you be on hand for the live blogging, or you should lie down maybe and get some soup?
Yeah, I'm going to work for a little bit more and then take a break, I think, so I can come back for it.
Okay. All right. Well, so you will be on hand for it.
Yes,
Well,
and
good.
Daily Coast will, of course, live blog it so we can all be together, at least virtually, to suffer through this final indignity.
Yes. And, it's fun to be on hand when, with people to talk to when he says the crazy thing or dismantles his podium or whatever he might do today. I don't know. But it's always fun to be together for that so that you can tell your kids that you remember where you were and who you were talking to when Trump did whatever it was.
Had his final implosion.
Or a whoopee cushion. I don't know what he got in store for us. Okay. Well, I don't want to strain your voice too much, but certainly anytime you feel like you can share with us if there's any stories or if you like, you can just give us your headlines and point us in the right direction, and I'll do the reading for us, and we'll let you get your rest and get some fluids.
Excuse me.
See?
Well,
this is for effect. That's good.
Yeah. We're going to have follow-up on John McCain's insane admission.
Yes.
That can you believe he said it out loud?
Almost no.
Almost no.
Yeah, I mean, just...
It's become so ingrained in these people that what they do is block Democrats that he just says it matter-of-factly.
Yes. I should let you get the actual declaration out for the record, though, instead of interrupting
The actual
you.
declaration was, and this, I don't know whether he was really thinking this would support Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But this is what he said. Pat Toomey's critical to us on the floor because Senate Republicans are going to be united behind denying Hillary Clinton any Supreme Court nominees. Any.
So...
We will be united behind denying her nominees.
Yes. Now, I understood he backed off a little bit on it when pressed.
Yes. With the, well, if they're qualified, we'll consider them based on their qualifications.
Which is the opposite of what he said. But,
Right.
yeah. So, Gang of 14 member and Extraordinary Circumstances believer, apparently, John McCain, now says the extraordinary circumstance is nominated by a Democratic president.
Yes.
That's great. Now, technically speaking, as we've said on the air before, the Gang of 14 agreement was for a specific time period ending back at 2000, at the end of 2006, I guess, the end of the Congress that they were in last time. I can't remember, what was that, the 114th? I don't remember anymore. Used to know that
112th,
stuff
I think.
off the top of my head.
No, even further back than that. Anyway.
All right. So, yeah, no more extraordinary circumstances. Just oppose anybody, no matter who they are, because they're nominated by Democrats, which extends the new Republican doctrine. There will be no Supreme Court nominations in the last year of a presidency, nor in any of the 4 years of the subsequent presidency.
If that subsequent president is a Democrat.
Yeah.
Which implies, of course, that he's fine with Donald Trump nominating to the Supreme Court.
I guess so.
They don't say it out loud, but that's the implication of the continued blockade.
I guess there's always... he left the door open to blocking everybody that Donald Trump nominates, too, but I don't think so. I don't think he would actually do it. But yeah, more importantly, the idea that they would just forbid a Democrat from filling a Supreme Court seat is considered a legitimate position to take is a remarkable evolution for John McCain. But good news for him nonetheless.
Good news for him.
Yes.
Not good news for him is having him on video running away from reporters refusing to answer the question, did you really mean this? Literally running away.
Well, it's good to stay active at his age. And,
at his age is important. Yeah.
Right. So it's good, and we should send him some track shoes or something.
Might help.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty remarkable development, and I guess we'll have to do something about that should we take back the majority and win the White House, and luckily we've laid the groundwork for that.
We've laid the groundwork for that. There's another important thing in this that came up last week that I hadn't really thought about before until I saw an interesting article on the 17 days between when the new Senate comes in and President Clinton is inaugurated. In those 17 days, we could give President Obama the last 30 nominees he has that have been waiting for a floor vote.
Oh.
Not necessarily Merrick Garland, but there are 30 judiciary nominees who have been through committee hearings who are just waiting for a floor date. Okay. And if Republicans continue to refuse to do that in lame duck, President Obama can renominate them really quickly, and they can push them through.
Yeah, I guess in a Democratic Senate.
It's going to be a Democratic Senate from January 3rd until January 21st when Hillary Clinton's in.
Yeah. So they would all have to be renominated, and because those nominations expire at the end of the previous Congress.
Right.
But a Democratic Senate would be presumably receptive to it. They would, believe it or not, remember, hey, we had hearings on this person.
Right.
New members might say, I didn't, but Democrats who are new senators will likely accept a quick briefing. Republicans will object that it's a terrible thing, but majority will prevail because they're not Supreme Court nominees, and they'll move them through. That's true. That can be done. It could be done. You'd run into the same roadblock because they didn't eliminate the filibuster on the Supreme Court nominees. It could be done. I mean, Merrick Garland could be renominated, but they're more likely they would say, all right, we can wait 3 weeks for the new president to handle the Supreme Court thing.
Yeah.
All right. And, much talk about eliminating the filibuster or reforming the filibuster in more ways, and maybe clearing the path for Supreme Court nominations, too. And this is the fallout of John McCain's comments, if it becomes obvious that they're simply going to forbid a Supreme Court nomination, that's going to have to go.
Yeah. And really, it's hard to see them doing anything less.
Yeah. Except for they're constantly issuing hollow promises that they can not deliver on. But it's very likely that they would put up that kind of opposition. At this point, I believe they would put up that kind of opposition to force Democrats to change the filibuster rules again, either in the hopes that this time it'll stick to them and everyone will be mad in 2 years and vote against Democrats, or they may very well secretly say, we'd like to be rid of the filibuster on this too, in case we ever get a Republican president, then we'd rather have them do the dirty work than us.
Yeah.
Possibly. I'm happy to oblige. And it's been a fantastic experience watching people on Twitter and elsewhere, both journalists and consumers of journalism like us, just simply stating outright as a fact that, changing the filibuster rules is very simple to do. Oh, good. I'm glad you're with us on that.
After lots and lots of hard work.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of people thought that really came about rather quickly. And then it occurred to me that I've been covering the Supreme Court fights and the nuclear option for now, I guess we're up to almost 12 years now that I've been following that and working actively.
That is quickly in this world.
Yeah, I guess that's true. In a way. It seems very long online. But then
it does seem very
12
long
hours
online.
is an
Yes.
eternity online. But,
you have a legacy, Kagro.
I do now.
How's that feel?
And it's not just the AV Club thing either.
No.
That's good. Yeah, it's very nice. I'm glad to have had a hand in it, and it occurred to me also the other day I have to change my profile on the list of writers and masthead stuff at Daily Kos because It was written years ago before they actually changed the rules, and I think it's still up there as having written the longest online series on parliamentary maneuvers that never happened. It's now happened.
They happened.
Yeah, and it's 3 years ago already, and that's how often I read that profile of myself.
Yeah, I think it's about time.
Yeah, so I might have to put that in there.
You can send that to Will.
Okay, and they'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else you want to drop on us here? We can let you get that chicken soup in you, and we'll be happy to read over anything else you have got to preview for us.
I think that does it for me.
Okay.
I think I need to go get a cup of tea.
I think so too. I wish you well with it. Thank you for coming in and struggling through it. I hope we haven't damaged your voice any. But
I doubt it.
It's fun to hear from
for
you.
the rest of the day, so we're okay.
Okay, very good. I appreciate it very much, and we hope that when we speak to you again next Wednesday, you're feeling much, much better. I hope
I will be feeling
tomorrow.
much, much better because there will no longer be any more debates that I have to live plug.
They're literally making you sick.
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, get healthy because they're about to end. Thanks so much, Joan. Take care. Literally, do get some rest. The tea, the soup, whatever it does it for you, feel better.
All right.
Okay, take care. Joan McCarter, senior political writer with Daily Kos, of course. Well on your way to recovery. Thanks, Obamacare.
Thanks, Obamacare.
Why not? We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, wow. Well, that was a bit of a struggle. I could hear that in her voice, but valiantly battling on. Gosh, you don't have to do that. I appreciate so much that you did. I hope we haven't strained anything for you. I hope it's all recoverable. Anyway, let's, we'll move on here. Oh, look, here, Kate Sherrill has documented our kudos from over at the AV Club here and sent on a clip. I'll share that with you online, everybody who hasn't seen it yet. And, of course, that'll make it into Scott Anderson's afternoon roundup of the podcast, available over at the Daily Kos Radio vertical of course, Daily Kos. Let's see. Other commentary that has come in. Gideon, still listening over there in the UK. He sent a note the other day just to wave and say hi. I'm still here. Talking about Assange and the embassy. If he leaves the embassy, Sweden will extradite him to the U.S. Okay. They're not going to take him back to Sweden do we have dibs on the guy? Bad situation for Julian Assange. I wouldn't be, I guess, if I were him and I believed in what I was doing, I wouldn't be leaving the embassy either. I'm not saying that he ought to give himself up in order to prove the rightness of his cause or anything like that. Anyway, let's see. Anything else that was coming through? Only, let's see, in the notifications column, an ongoing battle between some of the folks watching my gun fail tweets, which are coming back. They were on hiatus for the last, week or two as political developments just got too insane and the demands of the home schedule really set me back. But I'm back up to speed in collecting them anyway, still way behind in publishing them, and I think I might have to take a great leap forward. I think we're still stuck at the beginning of May in my published collection, and it's getting really ridiculous to be publishing so far behind. We might just have to kind of leap forward, and maybe I can do a greatest hits of the period between early May and now, and then get closer to real time. I think people really appreciate it more if they see what's happening now, even though you don't want to miss any of the other things, especially some of the more spectacular gun fails. Maybe we can collect the best of and put that out. All right. Let's see. Gil Aquino, also a daily listener, observing, this takes us back a little bit. Now, the tweet is now 42 minutes old. So where were we when he was writing, I'm all for evidence for Russian influence and not taking anything on faith, but isn't there good evidence of it? I think it's mounting. I just continue to take a grain of salt with any accusations about Russian interference directly in the election because I have that weird taste in my mouth that it's just always somewhat absurd sounding, thanks to decades of right-wing paranoia about Russian interference in everything. It just feels funny coming out of your mouth. But the kind of interference that they appear, or that they're being accused of perpetrating, isn't beyond the pale. It's not, cloak and dagger stuff that they're here to either, plot to steal state secrets or something. I mean, when it comes right down to it, hacking from Russia, I mean, why not do it? They're not going to get caught. They're not going to be extradited to the United States. It's like a free shot for hobbyist hackers. And it doesn't really rise to the level that it would be necessary to engage state actors in all this. And, of course, who even knows what qualifies as a state actor in Putin's Russia? I mean, it may or may not be being funded by not necessarily the state, but by the oligarchs who more or less comprise the state anyway. I mean, I don't know. It's a very confusing and weird situation. I'm not opposed to laying the blame there and opening the door to the investigation. I just don't. I don't feel confident in backing up any accusations about it. I have none to make. I will not object to them being made. I simply say, it still feels weird to be saying the Russians are interfering and everything. Justice has sent me something. I guess there's some, what would qualify as harder evidence here from Raw Story. Czech police and FBI arrest alleged Russian hacker. Russian? Not sure what that means. Russian hacker for cyber attacks against United States. And, I don't know. I mean, I guess before I even read it, I guess I would say cyber attacks are going to come against the United States because this is where the bulk of the internet economy resides, and it's just the most lucrative place to be doing your hacking. It might not necessarily have anything to do with an election, but, of course, there has been some very specific hacking going on of elections authorities, which again could be state action, could be, indirectly sponsored by people who are essentially part of the shadow-ish, which also doesn't feel good coming out of your mouth, shadow-ish government of Russia. That is to say, the oligarchs and the mobsters. Really it could just be, I know a bunch of teenage and 20-something hackers, and they're bored, and it would be fun for them to target something that should be, by all rights, very secure, but in fact is haphazardly done in the United States, the control of their elections. This will give the hackers some kind of weird sense of international intrigue, like they're hacking on something larger than themselves. They're not just ripping off credit cards anymore, or trying to hack into like war games, the game companies to play games before they're being released. This gives them a sense of accomplishment. And if they also get some big time cash for it along the way, well, hell, so much the better. I don't know what to make of it. Anyway, let's see what happened in this story. Maybe this will change my mind. Czech police said Wednesday they staged a joint operation with the FBI to arrest a Russian citizen in Prague suspected of staging cyber attacks on the United States. Washington last week formally accused the Russian government of trying to interfere in the 2016 White House race by hacking U.S. political institutions, charges the Kremlin has repeatedly dismissed. However, there was no indication from Czech police that the arrest in Prague was linked to the U.S. claims. Okay, there's one grain. Czech police have successfully collaborated with the FBI. The aim of the operation was a Russian citizen suspected of hacking attacks on targets in the United States. Police spokesman David Shawn said in a statement posted on the force's website. I guess the Czech police force's website. The arrest took place in a hotel in Prague city center Without identifying, that's what the statement said, without identifying the man by name or indicating when the arrest took place, the suspect collapsed in police custody. Was he 400 pounds? We don't know. Was given first aid and then hospitalized, it added. Okay. Czech judicial authorities must now rule on his extradition to the United States, the statement said. The Kremlin on Saturday slammed Washington for its unprecedented threats after U.S. Vice President Joe Biden told NBC that Putin would receive a message over the alleged hacking. It's just a text. Don't worry about it. Biden said Washington would respond to the alleged attacks at the time of our choosing and under the circumstances that have the greatest impact. No one knows what that means. NBC later reported that the CIA was preparing a retaliatory cyber attack designed to harass and embarrass the Kremlin leadership. Okay. The Kremlin was propelled to the heart of American politics in July after Hillary Clinton's campaign blamed Russia for an embarrassing leak of emails from the Democratic National Committee. Russia has been accused of favoring Republican candidate Donald Trump, who has praised Putin and called for better ties with Moscow over the more hawkish Clinton. Russia's relations with the U.S. have fallen to their post-Cold War nadir over the conflict in Ukraine and stalled efforts to end the 5-year Syrian war. So lots of true stuff in there. Just, to me, I don't know, I guess they're still missing pieces. Is the hacker, what was he hacking? They don't say. Who paid him to do the hacking? They don't say. What is he doing in Prague instead of in Russia? They don't say. So, the idea that the official Russian government is paying for government-employed hackers to hack American political institutions for the purpose of disrupting its elections. It's a sexy story. It might even be a true story because, I don't know, why not? I mean, what do they care? They definitely have a very, very different view about their relationship with the United States than we have of our normal relationship with other countries. They have a very different approach to governance entirely, and they always did, even without having the pretty, I think, impliedly at least, corrupt Vladimir Putin administration and the people he hangs with. But that's legitimate government in some of their eyes. We just have differing views of that. Now, why they would hack things, I mean, I guess just why not? But I think that the more likely explanation is, hey, we have people who are capable of doing this stuff, and let's just screw with the Americans, and let's not necessarily make it a part of the official Russian government budget, but Putin commands some loyalty among some extraordinarily rich people who would never miss the amount of money we're talking about to simply fund a bunch of semi-professional hackers to say, you know what, to go loose, go nuts, have fun, hack things that you think would worry the Americans, maybe with good reason, maybe not, and we'll throw you a couple of bucks. That would be a pretty cheap operation, I think, and it would be hard to separate it from the Russian government because the connections are pretty close, but technically speaking, it wouldn't be, I don't know. I don't know that it matters a great deal how the money gets to people. It's still something to be worried about. The places are pretty sure they're being hacked, and I don't have very much difficulty believing that they're being hacked. So, even though, again, I suppose in a lot of cases the proof is lacking, but I have no reason to disbelieve a news release from a previously credible source that hacking took place. But how do you demonstrate hacking to me? I'd have to sit there and watch the attack taking place in real time, I guess. And that's just not something everybody's going to ever have the opportunity to do. You can't simply abandon all faith in the reporting. But, I don't know, worth taking with a grain of salt. The grain of salt being, I don't really know that it's necessarily as direct a relationship to the Kremlin, meaning the official Russian government, as it's being portrayed. And that's just one of the things about Putin's Kremlin is the Kremlin. Do you mean official channels of Russian government, or do you mean there are certain people that feel comfortable coming to the Kremlin to meet with Putin because he gives them aid and comfort, despite the fact that they're regarded elsewhere, at least, as international crime figures. Well, I guess, does that count as Kremlin? I mean, Kremlin is now an umbrella term. It doesn't mean the Soviet government. It doesn't mean the official Russian government solely anymore. It now means anybody with whom Vladimir Putin is willing, on the record or off, to associate with. And, that could be anybody. And I guess that's where it becomes the most interesting, because so many of those people, as it turns out, have direct, or in some cases less direct, relationships with Donald Trump. And I guess that's why this story becomes interesting. All right. Well, I think we've covered my skepticism of these stories adequately. I don't disbelieve them. I just don't necessarily know that they are exactly what some say they are. But again, I also don't know that I'm ever going to be able to disprove the validity of those accusations either, because I think we're talking about umbrella organizations and broad definitions. A Russian hacker, is a Russian national or a member of the Russian government? Which do you mean? And does it make any difference given what's being hacked? Maybe not. All right. Oh, David Farenthold has popped up in my feed again. Very interesting, he says to Kellyanne Conway. Are you saying that Donald Trump gave to Twin Towers Fund, although he's not listed among its donors? That is a good follow-up question. I wonder what her answer is going to be and what David Farenthold will do with that information. So keep an eye on that one. All right. Let's see. Other items in the news worthy of sharing. People magazine has come out with another installation in its saga of Natasha Stoyanov's story of being attacked by Donald Trump. Specifically, a piece alleging that they have spoken on the record to 6 people who corroborate her story, including people that she told about the incident immediately afterwards and who specifically recall being told. But more astonishing, I thought, just in terms of, oh my God, these people, was this one. You'll remember perhaps that part of the story, I assumed I knew there was going to be some auto-playing video associated with this one. You remember the part of the story in which Natasha Stoyanov says that after the events at Mar-a-Lago, some number of years later, that she ran into Melania Trump on the street. She was carrying her son Barron with her, and she was puzzled as to why they no longer saw her coming around, why she had left the Trump beat. And I guess she didn't tell her at that point. That would have been awfully awkward to have said, oh, the reason I don't come around anymore is your husband forced himself on me while you were pregnant. When you went upstairs to change, he jumped me. That would be a tough admission to make, certainly. Anyway, I guess Melania's response to that, by the way, was to deny all of it, as you might expect that she would. But in addition to deny that she ever ran into Stoyanov on the street, and then she threatened to sue, because that's obviously, it's libel. You made that up. We never met on the street. That never happened. It's a minor detail in all this, but, the Trumps, that's what they do. They threaten to sue people over these things, and they very rarely come through and sue. As a matter of fact, there was, of course, the first round of threats and all this was, wasn't it like the end of last week or even the middle of last week that they were promising that their suit against the New York Times would be filed? Well, it hasn't been, and it's unlikely ever to be filed because it's a terrible, terrible lawsuit and entirely without merit. Even worse is Melania's threat to sue, I guess, people and Natasha, I suppose, personally, for alleging this non-existent event that they never met on Fifth Avenue outside of the Trump Tower. I just find that astonishing, and I guess maybe they could have avoided that embarrassment for Melania if the initial reporting from Stoyanov had said, not only did we meet on Fifth Avenue and we had that conversation, but I had a friend with me. But she neglected to say that because it was totally unnecessary to the story to say so. But apparently it was actually true. And I guess Melania, well, maybe Melania really does have no recollection of it, or was never introduced to the friend, or didn't realize that they were together, or whatever. But so Melania threatens to sue. And one of the 6 people in this article is the friend who says, yeah, I was standing right with her. I totally remember running into Melania on Fifth Avenue when I was with Natasha, because that's an unusual event. And guess what? It actually happened. That is pretty amazing. So there you have it. I mean, where's the selection from the story? Can I identify which one it is? I mean, there's a lot of people here just corroborating that she told them the story immediately after it happened. But, is this... I can't find the one that's the one who was with her on the street. But, I'll share that link with you, too. You can dig it up. That's probably less important that I actually have the name of the person who was there. I just found that rather amazing, and just another stick your foot in it situation for Melania, who just really, at this point, has got to be sick to death with having to deal with the media, because every time she gets shoved out front, it ends up an embarrassment. I know she just, I'm sure, wants out at this point, and at least out of the media for this election. She may also want out of the marriage, but that's not something I'm privy to. All right, so let's see. What other things that I want to make sure that we mentioned before wrapping up for the day? Tip of the hat to these folks. One of my other projects, of course, the gun fail work. And boy, I do have some more gun fail stories I'm going to have to share during one of our upcoming very special episodes, I guess. But wanted to make you aware of this one. And I'll look up if I can find who shared this one with me. It's now buried in my notifications column. But thank you for sending me this link to Penn Engineering's project. And you can find them, I guess. Well, they wrote this piece at medium.com, where I guess you could identify them in much the same way as you do on Twitter with an at Penn Engineering. Penn being, of course, University of Pennsylvania. They're working on this project, a gun violence database. I just found that rather fascinating. They are crowdsourcing gun violence research. Why? As we know, the CDC is prohibited by federal law from conducting gun violence research, so there's very limited opportunity for centralized infrastructure to monitor where, how, when, and why, and to whom shootings occur. So the answer, private efforts. Chris Callison Birch, the Aravind K. Joshi Term Assistant Professor in Computer and Information Science, and a graduate student, Ellie Pavlik, are working on a way to solve that problem. They've developed this gun violence database, which combines machine learning and crowdsourcing techniques to produce a national registry of shooting incidents, not just accidents like I cover, but all shooting incidents. Callison, Birch, and Pavlik's algorithm scans thousands of articles from local newspaper and television stations, determines which are about gun violence, then asks everyday people to help pull out vital statistics from those articles, compiling that information into a unified open database. That is to say, the algorithm has difficulties. It's not perfect. It can't do the job all by itself, but it identifies articles, and then you need a human eye to say, all right, is this really about gun violence, or is this a story where somebody says so-and-so shot themselves in the foot by doing this terrible thing, and it's metaphorical? The machines can't figure that out. They need you to do it. And so not only have they built this thing that collects and scans all these articles, they've built an opportunity here for you to sign up as an individual, and they have buckets of tasks, essentially, and you can sign up to handle some of those things. If you click on their page here, and I'll provide the link to Scott, and he'll put it in the roundup page. But you can take a look at the descriptions of the tasks, and there are several different ones. You can opt to read an article and try and sort it. You can opt to try and identify the people involved and maybe Google up a little bit about them and help fill in some of the details about them demographically. You can help with all sorts of different tasks, essentially sorted by types that you can volunteer to give as much or as little time as you have available to help them sort this out. And it has not only sorted by different tasks, but it says how many tasks do they have waiting in their queue, how many other people do they have working on those tasks. Nice information that can help you decide how you would like to pitch in. Very interesting, and kudos to them for putting this one together. I don't know if I have time to really work on that stuff, given how much time I'm wasting, it sometimes seems, on the gun fail thing. But I will. I wanted to bring that up because I did also want to make mention of the fact that the AP has put out an article on child shootings, accidental shootings, based on research very much like mine, also very much very similar to the New York Times article of some years ago on the fact that government statistics tend to undercount these things. And it has produced enormous interest, and they really did a great job presenting their information sortable by state and even localities. So local papers and local reporters are mining this database for this information and producing piece after piece after piece tailored to local markets. 8 kids have been shot to death accidentally over the past X number of years in Missouri, or this many in Tennessee, or ours is the second ranking state or the first ranking, the worst state for child accidental shootings. Everybody is finding the piece of the puzzle that is of interest to them and being able to compare themselves to the phenomenon, I guess, for lack of a better term, nationally. So I think kudos there to the AP for doing that, the way they put out their information and made it available to everyone, and which has generated an enormous resurgence, again, in interest in these accidental shootings, which I guess I got to trace back to the gun fail project as well. I guess we'll call it another part of the legacy, I suppose. I really do think that raising the awareness of the frequency with which these things happen has inspired not only other reporters to cover it, including, I think, the AP folks, even if they don't know exactly where it's coming from. Most often they're citing the work of larger institutions, the Gun Violence Archive, the Brady campaign, whatever. But I know that Gun Fail has fed the ideas for all of those projects. I know it's true. And so, they're another part of the legacy of which I suppose we can be proud. And you too, by extension, as listeners to the Kagro in the Morning Show, can also be proud. You can, in fact, fund our ongoing efforts. I encourage everyone out there enjoying the show, of course, to take a look at our afternoon podcast summaries and our morning blurbs and our appearance in the midday open threads. They all provide you with links to the opportunities to help support the show, whether with a one-time donation or recurring monthly support. Either way, much appreciated. It actually costs us a lot of time and money to put this show together. I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you can find a way to express your appreciation of that. And here's something else for you to appreciate. Do stay tuned to Netroots Radio for the after show. Coming up next, we'll cram in what we can to tell you about what's coming up. The memorial to Emmett Till is riddled with bullets, while the sign marking his killer's home is adorned with flowers. Bad news for America. Trump's voter intimidation squads could face a year in prison, and the NAACP calls for no more charter learning facilities until privatized schools face the same standards as public schools. What about the last half of today's show?
From Daily Coast Radio.
All that coming up
on
next.
netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Yet to come on the last half, they'll report about Trump's new claim that Obama stole North Carolina in 2008. Hey, it sounds almost plausible until you realize it's based on completely false premises. And experts suspect the newly discovered Dead Sea Scroll fragments have been faked. Oh no! So as to appeal to rich American evangelicals.